family, welcome to this live stream. And today we'll be talking about geopolitical turning point that is really making the hot spot right now. And this is a diplomatic extension, a proposal that Ivory Coast is now making to the Alliance of Sahel. A lot of people believe that the Alliance of Sahel States be dishing out diplomatic tidings right now. So everybody want to have a share of this diplomatic goodies right now. So what do we have, ladies and gentlemen? According to the information we have, Ivory Coast is reaching out to the AES state. A lot of people said the way Ivory Coast is trying to reach out to the AES is not really right. A lot of people say um, there is nothing Ivory Coast can do, that's the best way they can reach out. Okay, now I'm gonna say this, right? I don't really trust the Ivorian regime like that. But let's go into this conversation and let's have a deep dive into what is going on, right? Because Mauritania wants bilateral cooperation with the AES. Algeria is in cooperation with Niger Republic and Burkina Faso. You know, a lot of things are changing. You talk about Benin Republic, Mauritania, and all of those things are changing, and people are beginning to look at the areas like, okay, we believe that they are becoming very pervious and receptive. All right, can we extend our diplomatic proposal to them? So a lot of people are, they're extending their diplomatic rapprochement towards the AES, and they've seen recently that the Alliance of Sahel States is becoming increasingly receptive of all of this. Welcome, welcome. And that has created some level of buzz, right? That okay, now we can try. But here's the cautionary tale. I think some of this diplomatic, rapprochement is kind of intentionally correct, and some of this diplomatic extension is very fake. But you will be the judge, right? So let's talk about what is going on. According to information on June 16, 2026, just yesterday, the Ivorian Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, who happens to be a relative of the President of Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara, whose name go by Tene Birahima Ouattara, made a major diplomatic move from the Eurosatory 2026 Defense Expo in Paris. Now, this is where everything started, everything went south from the top bottom. If you want to make diplomatic proposals, right, to your neighbors, ladies and gentlemen, you want to make diplomatic, first of all, make it make sense. You want to make diplomatic proposal. You want to talk to your neighbors who are anti-imperial based on policy, based on diplomacy, based on how they move. All right. Then Ivory Coast is just next to Mali and Burkina Faso. All right. But you cannot talk to your neighbors in the western part of Africa. All right. You can't talk to them in West Africa. All you have to do is to go to Paris and tell Burkina Faso and Mali that you want to collaborate. So here's what I think. I think this is not just Ivory Coast making this proposal, because this entire Eurosatory Defense Expo 2026 was a French strategy, was a French organization. It was like, it's everything France, all right? And, when France leads, they will invite all their puppets to come to the event, inflammate the whole, should I say, attendance, just to make it look like something good, right? So According to information, Ivory Coast was they were invited to the program in Paris. And in an interview with AFP, he declared that Abidjan is ready to resume security cooperation with Mali and Burkina Faso, but did not mention Niger. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Abidjan is ready to resume security cooperation with Mali and Burkina Faso. All right. Two of the core AES states. Should we say that France is trying to rebuild relationship? I looked at the very emotional, Air France departure. Well, I don't know what this poetic write up, and it was so interesting, so emotional. But come on, get out. That is what everybody is saying. Thank you so much, brother, for joining. Thanks for the donation too. You know, it's like I listen to everything that the French Air France airline said in the. It was so long, it almost rocked me to sleep, and I was like, "Oh man, this is so beautiful." But get out, all right. So now, and I'm after this topic, we are going to talk about our reaction from our perspective, based on what the back and forth going on between the Nathalie Yamb, and the pro AES people that really are looking into the statement of Nathalie Yamb, so we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to try to, you know, tell you the truth that a lot of people might not like, a lot of people might like. We might all be on the same page, but we're going to get into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Abidjan team did not find it interesting to just send, possibly maybe their foreign minister, or send envoys, diplomatic envoys to Burkina Faso, which is just a stone throw. So you have to go all the way to Paris. So the question here is it that Abidjan needs the blessing of France to even make diplomatic, extension or collaboration, whatever they want to do with their neighbors in West Africa? But at the same time, a lot of people are saying that the relationship between Abidjan and Ouagadougou with Bamako has kind of broken to the point where maybe Paris was the right place to be like, all right, we want to collaborate. And some other people are saying it makes no sense. No matter how bad the relationship is, it would have been so good if you can ignore the shame and just go out there, say a couple good things about the AES, you know, draw the line with the JNIM. We don't want you in our territory, because we've seen videos of the Fossatec Oroya team that is spearheaded by Commander Watao chasing the JNIM into the Ivorian territory. This one is even recent. So the Fossatec Oroya had a close combat exchange with the JNIM. They initiated the contact first. The Fossatec Oroya is a special forces, like is the cream of the crop in Burkina Faso. Those guys, like, I have not heard in the last 6 months that they got a single casualty when they are on combat. I kind of feel that they are so different to the point that when the JNIM squad spotted them, I want to ask you a question. When last did you hear that there was a trouble from the Ivorian territory? It's been a long time. And that's because after the border conflict, the Burkinabe government sent in the Fossatec squad to that region. It used to be their theater of operation. They left after some time. Then the Ivorian troops showed some sort of misbehavior that is probably initiated, that was influenced by certain, non-state actors, but the first attack came back and, everything changed. But here's the thing that we must pay attention to, ladies and gentlemen. Immediately, some of the JNIM dropped like flies, all right? But immediately, they entered the Ivorian territory. After crossing the stream that separated Burkina Faso from Ivory Coast, the weapon went from you holding a weapon like this, to you dropping your hands. So immediately they entered the Ivorian territory. They felt so safe. It was like you are home. So, and these are documented. These are video. These are not tests. These are video documents. So, the Alliance of Sahel kind of look at the Ivorian regime like, man, you can't have any better puppets than the guys over there. And a lot of people are saying Tene Biraima, all right, is supposed to be the guy to replace Alassane Ouattara, because Ouattara is old. In fact, the last time I saw the president of Ivory Coast, man, I kind of look at him like, man, like is I mean, no disrespect, Alassane Ouattara is like is dusted. He's not done, but he's dusted. So, with all due respect, I think the next man in selection should be, by French anointing, Tene Biraima. All right. So I kind of think that maybe they are giving him this assignment. I don't know why the French want to return to the Sahel so bad, but you definitely know that they want to return to the Sahel. But they're going about it in multiple mischievous ways, terrible ways. And even when you look at a statement from Air France, the way they spoke, if you really, really read between the lines and you go into the psychological effects they were trying to drive, they were trying to tell the citizens there, like, we are for you. Like, there is this thing that France is trying to create, this type of break. Every opportunity they get, they try to trigger this type of disintegration between the government and the people. And that is all wrong. Because if the people look at it from a strategic standpoint, who pays the JNIM? Who enforce the JNIM? Who buys the artisanal gold from that has been mined by JNIM personnel? Who puts the JNIM in place? Who made the political coordination that gave them a territory in the Bord Baji Mukhtar region in Algeria? Who gave them a foothold in Fezzan? So when you look at all these things, and what's the primary objective of the JNIM? We have seen situation in Nigeria where the Islamic State in West African province elements come to some location in the Bama local government, when you are going to Borno State. They tell the civilians, don't worry, we are not for you. Everybody stay inside and lie down. Not the Boko Haram, the ISWAP, they tell the civilians, go down. Like, stay inside, lock yourself up and go down. We're not coming for you, we're coming for the military. Right? So in that type of situation, civilians kind of civilians are kind of influenced differently. But in Mali, in Burkina Faso, the conversation is different. The active target of the JNIM is the people. And the government forces are protecting the people from the whims and caprices of this element. Now, if you look at the whole thing, Who sent them? Whose interest are they working for? So when you know who they are working for, and the fact that the primary target are the civilians, and these people represent France, because they've said it. Even the Natalie Yam video, remember they said it. They said it. This will be their unorthodox forces, right? So if these are the new forces of France, right, in Sahel, the question is, how should we see the letter that was written by Air France? Can you see the hypocrisy? The evil, the level of evil is unspeakable. You cannot estimate. You cannot understand the height to the evils. Like it's not even evil. Like there are levels to that evil. You think the same people that drop more than 10 nuclear bombs in Algeria, you think they've changed? In your mind, you think they've changed? All right. So, according to information, the Abidjan Prime Minister said that Abidjan is ready to resume security cooperation with Mali and Burkina Faso. He said, he mentioned those two countries specifically. According to him, he said, no single state can defeat terrorism alone. He is calling for the Malian and the Burkinabe Confederates to pool forces together with the Ivorian forces and let us create a cross-border security framework. The billion-dollar question at the same time is still, does it make sense? Now I get the fact that nobody can exist in a bubble. You need your neighbors. You need to have some sort of security agreement. But why should you go to France to make such statement? Did Wadagni make the proposal from Paris? You know, in the battle for sovereignty, in the battle for reclaiming our identity, it goes down to the smallest details. It goes down to the smallest skirmish. It goes down to the smallest, you know, it goes down to where we want to, you are not going to beat me to the smallest narrative. That is how serious it is. That is why a lot of people that are still naive, they watch social media, they watch YouTube documentary, they watch a lot of channels, like they watch it like from a naive perspective. But a lot of these people don't understand that soft power play is going on. I don't want to waste your time. There's a lot of things to talk about, but there's a lot of attachments to bring into this conversation, but it will take our time for too long. So let's continue what we're doing. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tene Biraima's introduction to the AES. So, and why is it Tene Biraima? Why is it that Tene Biraima is the one making this, proposal? Is something wrong? Does President Alassani Ouattara treat himself in Ivory Coast, or does he fly to Paris anytime he's sick? Why is it coming to? Why are we? We're at the point where the way Tene Biraima is positioning himself is looking more like he's going to be the president of Ivory Coast anytime soon. Even if there is an election, it will be a selection. So I'm beginning to look in a certain direction that people are not looking. Is something wrong with the president? With all due respect, if he doesn't take his treatment in Ivory Coast every time he has malaria, he travels to France, right? And now he wasn't invited to Paris. They invited, Tene Biraima. So the question we should be asking now is Tene Biraima, is something wrong with the president. Maybe he's sick. Maybe the type of, I don't know. This is just me thinking, maybe I'm overthinking it because France might know something that we don't know. President Dramani Ouattara is never too tired to go to France. He jumps to France at every opportunity he has. But now that Tenebiraima is getting, too active, are we looking at a situation where something is wrong with with the old man? But we are going to see, all right? We're going to see. So, and we are not pushing to the Ivorian regime. We are not doing that. We're just saying, all right, since Tenebiraima is now the guy calling the shot, because that statement is supposed to be coming from the leader of Ivory Coast, not Tenebiraima. Okay, but is there even a precedent, or is France the one making all the decision, and they just put these people in place? Just regurgitate what we tell you. Every thinking person will look at this thing. It's all a caricature. It's so funny. Are these guys even president? Are they presidents? Or is France the eternal president? And they just take orders. All right, we'll get into the conversation a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is quite remarkable because a lot of people are talking about it. And we need to dissect it because it affects the geopolitical security landscape of West Africa. So, according to information at the Eurosatory 2026 Defense Exhibition in France, Cote d'Ivoire Vice Prime Minister and Defense Minister Teneb Ibrahima, the brother of President Alassane Ouattara himself, sat down with the agency France Presse and did something a lot of people are saying they've never seen before. In, they said, 2 years, the Ivory Coast, the AES have not been in any type of good relationship for in the last 2 years. According to information, he said, he's sending a message out and he wants people to hear it clearly. These are a statement that I'm quoting directly. He said, Cote d'Ivoire is pretty ready to resume security cooperation with Mali and Burkina Faso. It didn't go beyond that. And he used the word that I find very, very telling. He described 2024 break in cooperation, both security, economic, diplomatic. He said that it was a brutal halt in the rapprochement between both blocks because Ivory Coast was one of the top flag bearers of ECOWAS, and Mali, Burkina Faso, I would say they were the Mali most especially was they were the ones that started this revolution. Mali started the revolution, so it was a brutal halt between both, and maybe this is the reason why there is a lot of pressure on Mali because they feel like these people started this revolution, you know, and they feel like, all right, Mali encouraged the rest. Because when you look at the way these people think at times, you wonder. So now, what do you think about that? That the same Ivorian minister that has maintained a very close relationship with Paris, military cooperation with not just Paris but Washington, is now calling for the Alliance of Sahel States to come and have a bilateral cooperation, military partnership, and all of that. So the same France that the AES countries expel from their territories is the most fundamental figure when it comes to the Ivorian, foreign defense architecture. So now they are saying they want to collaborate with Ouagadougou and Bamako on counterterrorism. man, you know, honestly, you already know. You all already know. You all already know what time it is. These are people that eat and drink with these elements. We've not forgotten about the mercenaries from Ivory Coast that got arrested in Bamako. These memories are still fresh. And why is it so sudden that 7 weeks into the April 25 attack, Mauritania is coming to talk about bilateral relationship, and Ivory Coast is kind of making some talk about bilateral relationship. But then we have a battle in northern Mali, what I call the FPV battle going. In fact, they've gone from FPV battle, they've gone to the fiber optic battle. I think yesterday the FLA tried to attack a Malian outpost with a fiber optic drone, with a FPV drone that got jammed. You know, the reason why we kind of knew he got jammed was because there was another reconnaissance drone overwatch that they sent to monitor the strike mission. So he failed. So today they used a different drone, an FPV drone. Now, there was no reconnaissance footage of what was struck. Was anything struck? According to the information they gave, they said they hit a relay track of the TB2 capability. Now, number one thing, as long as a TB2 drone or Bayraktar Kinchi or Tayak Songo drone is not damaged or Orion Kronstadt, there is a kind of warranty. There is an insurance cover. All right. So if you did not damage the capability itself, then you are wasting your time. Now, what do we have later this evening? The Russian African Corps went all out with fiber optic capability. Now they are hunting the JNIM terrorists on motorcycles, all right, with fiber optic drone. So, like, when you look at the level of escalation, most especially in Mali, look, whatever is going on in any part of Africa, like I don't like whatever is going on in DRC and all those other places. Like I don't really I take those, you know, like there's no resistance from the Congolese. There is no significant resistance. Like when you look at the level in Mali, like there are levels to this. They want to tell us that this is it's not a global epicenter of terrorism. You are waging a war against these people, and the fact that their forces can stand toe to toe with you all and negotiate it with you on the battlefield is incredible. So you got it's now drone for drone. If anybody tell you that, okay, like the motorcycles were moving in different direction, no, they got caught. So the question I'm beginning to ask myself, this level of escalation that is going on in northern Mali, because today's attack, it was around the Anefis, very close to the outskirts of Ageok, then to, I think, Timbuktu. That was where this attack happened. The African Corps actually chased them down in Timbuktu. They chased them down when you are going up a little bit, crossing outside Timbuktu. There was another FPV hit. So I'm looking at, like, with FPV drones, you really cannot walk through anywhere Just like the April 25 is gone. And I noticed something. Before the April 25 attack, I started seeing it. We noticed a little bit of escalation in drone attacks on bases. They were testing the waters. Like, okay, let's see their response. They were scratching the tree. They were doing everything. They wanted to see the response from the Malians, right? And on the 25th of April, there was a total escalation of drone attack. Now, you already know, according to documented reports, that the Ukrainian forces that were operating in the French Legion, all right, that have good experience from the Migua drone unit in Ukraine, they were the guys that carried out the attack. A lot of them were neutralized in the process. Between 25th to 27th, they were equally neutralized by the Russians. So it was like back and forth before the tactical withdrawal. And now most of the bases they occupied, they cannot hold those bases because they don't have the resource capability to hold them down. And now when you look at the attritional metadata, now this is a non-conventional military term that you use to estimate who is going to bleed. Like, you are looking at the rate of escalation and you are trying to calculate who is bleeding out faster and who can maintain that fight, who can stay longer in the fight. I think the FLA, because if you look at the Bedouin Arabs, they are not really much like that. Can they maintain this? Can they hold on? Now that it's no longer rifle to rifle, that now everybody is going into FPV battle, man, I don't think they can stand it. Now, my next concern, if you look at this thing clearly, is the FPV drone ship? No. Is the fiber optic drone ship? Hell no. These are expensive capabilities. These are not, this is not some lead bullets. So it means that the same people through Air France that told the Malian people how much love they have for the Malian people are the funders of the same people. In fact, they are in charge of delivery, the logistical delivery of the FPV drone, because I'm so sure the Amadou Kufas of the world and the Iyada Gali, they don't have the financial capability to fund a drone escalation. They don't have the financial capability. And how are they being funded? When you hear all this, Europe donated 90 billion to Ukraine, you surely believe that most of those capabilities are coming to Africa through the black market. So there is a lot to this. But what I can tell you is, based on the events on the contact line, the Malians are in charge of the situation. And this is why we need to be careful when we speak about the Malians in certain ways, because I have seen soldiers falling on the battlefield. On 25th, 26th to 27, I saw soldiers in their pool of blood. I saw it. We don't just have to show you. I saw soldiers that fought to the very last moment, outnumbered. They did not, sorry, they choose like, it's better I fight to, I'm out. You definitely, like, you know it was hot, but I think the cam in I think the camera, and in his helmet or something, was still recording how he was fighting back. But you could see that his breathing has changed. We've seen this. We've seen some of the most inhumane treatment that the troops face sometimes when they get hit, and their heavy weapons that they can use to suppress the support fire team of the enemies get blown apart by improvised explosive device. Families, let me tell you something. I've seen a video where almost 20, I think 23 Nigerian forces, they disappeared with I think they called that place Tilaberi, the outskirts of Tilaberi. Improvised explosive device. It was a remote control one. Like, the explosion was massive. The vehicle was all over the place. Now, seeing all these things, when when the troops react and they respond, I did see some people say, "Oh, they're not supposed to respond in that way. They're not supposed to respond in what way? They're supposed to give them a humanitarian passage, because if they say they should eliminate all the JNIM and all the FLA in Kidal, that does not make them any better than the terrorists there." So what you're trying to say is that they should rehabilitate people whose fundamental indoctrination was to terminate people and misrepresent, saying, "Oh man, don't let's go to that place." So we should be careful with reactions sometimes, because some people won't see some of the soldiers, they belong to families. Some of them are husbands, like their families will not get to see them again. The JNI post these videos, their family sees it. And when the JNI terrorist is caught, somebody will come and tell us that they can be rehabilitated. When they are rehabilitated, they will come and help to build the country. What are you saying? So now, when you start rehabilitating these people with taxpayers' money, now they now have a belief that is either you get your 72 virgin, which is another recruitment capability. They will say it's either you get your 72 virgin or you get rehabilitated. All you have to do is that when you see that you are outnumbered, surrender. No, no, it won't go down that route. It won't go down that way. And when you are facing terrorism, you are not facing conventional forces. The only language terrorists understand is brutality. You ask your question why there's no terrorism in North Korea. If every traitor in Mali, if every traitor that have ever been caught in Mali, state and non-state, were sentenced to death, and the I'm talking about the interval from sentencing was less than 2 weeks to the day of disappearing, I'm telling you, everybody will have a rethink. Just some days ago, another FLA terrorist that was in the rank of the Malian army deserted the army and ran back to the terrorist fold. Why? You cannot de-radicalize these people. You cannot. See, there is something you call fundamental, and it's from the fundamental you build every other thing. Everybody have fundamentals. Let me tell you something very simple. You can't take away state and capital from people. That was what they learned when they were little. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and thereabout. You can't take that away from people. That is their fundamental. A, B, C, D, like that's their fundamental. So when the JNIM invaded territory and they take women and they take little kids, do you know what they do? They radicalize the developmental stage of those. See, you can they are finished. They are gone. Those are not humans. You think they are humans. Have you seen that video on Telegram where they were harming Malian youths and they were throwing them inside this undisclosed well in some location? So now you think they are still human. They are not anymore. No country in this world, no reasonable country, bring a terrorist back into the civilian fold or the public fold, claiming that they have been de-radicalized. It will never happen. People have bled. And you see this whole FLA conversation is dead forever. I repeat, you see this conversation about there was a territory in 1500 is dead forever. Do you know why it's dead? People have bled. People have died. We don't care about your look. Somebody will have to fall at this point. When things get to this point, somebody will have to break for somebody. But it's all good. So now, and this is why I'm beginning to look at it, because the elements around around the Kidal region, they are already trying what I call probing. Because when you start seeing one or two FPV attacks, it's called probing. They want to check the defenses. Are you on point? That is it. That's what they're trying to do. And now we're seeing diplomatic moves from countries like Mauritania, who are sworn enemies of the AES, together with Ivory Coast of all countries. The Ivorian people are not bad people, but when you look at the regime there, you definitely know they don't represent the interest of the people. So, Tene Biraima called the break of relationship between both blocs. He said it was a brutal halt in relationship in June 2024, exactly 2 years ago this month. And since then, radio silence, no joint patrol, no intelligence sharing. He said nothing. So I'm quoting, he said, I am sincerely ready. Again, family, let's make this make sense. This is Tene Birahima speaking. This is not Alassani Dramani Ouattara. There is a thing as I am speaking on behalf of, and I am sincerely ready. Is Tene Birahima the president of Ivory Coast? Is he the one to make that decision? Right? Or is it France telling them that we are sincerely ready? So let's continue. He said, I am sincerely ready, but these are his word clearly. He said, but, and here is the catch. Does my neighbors want it? That is Tene Birahima speaking. He said, does Mali and Burkina Faso want that defense cooperation? Now, you see, the funny aspect of the whole thing is this. He's making this offer from Paris, from the Eurosatory Defense Expo, at the same event where he met Airbus Safran and other West African, West African, defense cooperation and other Western defense cooperation. And after the interview, he reaffirmed. Now, this is another aspect of it. Now, this is why I'm saying that is he Are these the words of the Ivorian representatives, or this is the direct word of France? All right. At the same interview, Tene Birahima said that France remain a number one privileged partner of Cote d'Ivoire. These are the words of Tene Birahima. So the question is this a genuine olive branch? Is this a genuine outreach to the Alliance of Sahel? Brothers, let's cooperate. Or is this, Abidjan trying to have it both ways? You know what I mean? Like maintaining French security umbrella while having to rebuild their relationship with the Alliance of Sahel. Or is Ivory Coast playing a very, very big game that is going to even damage the little trust that the AES might have for them, and time up. But if you ask from me, if I still have some trust for the Ivorian government, I'll tell you absolutely no. I don't believe that Ivory Coast can ever change. According to the information we have, Ivory Coast was notably invited, and according to information, they are currently working on the security agreement with Ghana. They want to secure, the Ghana Ivory Coast corridor and all of that, and they have some security, set up in place. So a lot of people are asking now that, you know, that maybe the Alliance of Sahel States uh, is going to respond. If they are going to respond, we are going to see in the coming days. We're definitely going to see what their response would be. So for me, how I see this statement, I don't believe anything they say. I think these are the words of France. But I'm not in the best position to speak for the esteemed government of the Alliance of Sahel States. And I'm not going to impose, what I mean? I'm not going to impose my will, uh, you know, I'm not going to impose my will. I know a lot of people from the Sahel, they listen to me, and I kind of say they take our judgments. I'm talking from experience, right? I know a lot of people from the Sahel listen, and I kind of know that they take our judgments seriously. But in my opinion, I'm going to say whatever decision the government of the Sahel make is the best. But left to me, uh, Ivory Coast is not the friend of the AES. We don't see them as an enemy, but if they think they are the enemy of the AES, it's all good. You know what I mean? Like, we don't see Ivory Coast, we don't see the Ivorians, we don't see them as enemies. But if the regime of Ivory Coast see the AES as enemies, it's all good. Now the question is, whose interest do they serve? Is it the interest of the African people generally, or is it the interest of France? So if you are to lead a people of your own kind, what is the essence if you cannot just go by the way of the interest of your people? So that is a big ask right there from the Ivorian regime. I kind of hope that the Ivorian regime can do good for their people. I hope they can do better, stand better, act better. But if they don't, I won't be surprised because we're already prepared for every possibility from the Ivorian government. Most especially given the fact that their behavior, you know, um, thank you so much, brother, for joining. Their behavior for a while has always been from the negative standpoint. The things they've said, the open declaration, it has not been good. And we do know that the Ivorian people, they are not really, really benefiting from the government like that. We've seen some internal escalation recently, but it's not our business, all right? We're not trying to get in their business. It's called non interference in state affairs, but it's all good, all right? It's all good. So now let's get into the Natalie Yam conversation. So families, Natalie Yam said some things, right? And the response from our brother, yeah, Ivory Coast serve the interest of France, definitely. You are on point on that. You are very, very correct on that. You know, there are some servants, you call them eternal, eternally loyal servant, and that is Alassane Ouattara. You can't take it away from him. And I kind of feel like Burkina Faso needs to be most careful with Ivory Coast. Do you get what I'm saying? If you look at the escalation from the Ivorian border, they've not really been negative towards Mali like that, because every time they try, the Malian armed forces have been able to crush, whatever insurrection is coming from Ivory Coast. But I think Burkina Faso should be more careful, in my opinion, because it's somehow very petty, where you are dealing with somebody you see, like when you are dealing with your own people. If it was, if the president of Ivory Coast was an Ivorian indigent, it makes sense. Maybe he would have even like, man, I don't want to care about whatever. All right. But if, given the fact that Alassane Ouattara he's a Burkinabe by birth, that dude, I'm telling you that when he wakes up in the morning, he thinks Burkina. Before he sleeps, he thinks Burkina. And there is this entitlement mindset that, don't worry, he's my, I'm the puppet of France. Don't worry, I'm gonna make them puppets. Remember the coup d'etat? It was all funded from Ivory Coast. Before the fall of Thomas Sankara, the blessed memory, the coup for Thomas Sankara was funded from Ivory Coast. And when Blaise Compaoré tried to escape, where did he escape to? He escaped to Ivory Coast. So there is nothing, there is no type of, Ivory Coast is that neighbor that if they bring friendship, all right, shake hands. But you got to be extremely careful, because we are not talking based on, this is not trying to divide. This is working on historical, contextual statistics. If Ivorians were involved during Sankara, and look at all the coup d'etat in the Sahel, you hardly hear one of the coup plotters speak without talking about Ivory Coast. They went to get money from Ivory Coast, from a commercial manager, and they're about Ivory Coast, like, bro. So for me, if you want to be friends, all right, good one from you, all right. But we are gonna stay on defense, like we are supposed to stay on defense. Everybody, I know a lot of people want United Africa, but you have to be on defense at all time, because a lot of these presidents, they are just, what they call Megad in Yoruba. They call them Megad. People that are selected, watch that place for me. Yeah, that's what they're doing for the West, and without African resources, the West will not be on point. So they will do whatever they can, lie, kill, do whatever to get to their resources. That said, it's good that the AES now have sovereign control over their resources. At least, first group of countries in Africa that can say that they have the right to their fundamental wealth. That said, Nathalie Yam said some things. I'm not going to go into the reaction of our esteemed journalist Abdul Niang. I am going to talk specifically about what Nathalie Yam said. To be honest with you, I'm not, I don't have a side, all right? I want to judge from a very, very sensible standpoint. Nathalie Yam said some things that, if you've been through everything that is going on, you kind of think like everything she said was honest, but too brutally honest. And if you know one thing about everybody that goes along with the AES, they are too brutal when it comes to their honesty. We are too brutal with our honesty. Have you ever been in a situation where you love people so much that you love them to their fall? Have you ever been in that situation before? You love people so much to a fault that you are scared that, man, I love this dude so much, and if I say this, we might not be friends anymore. You are scared of losing the relationship. But at the end of the day, because you are scared of the losing the relationship, you don't only lose the relationship, you lose them. There are some truths that even me, I might not be happy. There is a name on this platform. The name is Obsidian Kitty. She's part of us in this community. Her name is Obsidian Kitty. She's the most brutally honest when it comes to scrutinizing what I do. But to be honest with you, everything she has ever said about my performance and how I behave, I kind of don't like it sometimes, but I listen. Sometimes the way I be thinking, I think the people that even criticize me, sometimes I be like, this person like me, that's why they criticize me this bad. And I take every lesson. But I might not. I know that definitely there are some people right here that like me so much too that will be like, don't say that. I understand. They are all on the same side. But we have to be able to take the facts. We have to be able to take the lesson and not just go emotional at all time. So we and Natalie Yamp are on the same page. She's human. We need Natalie Yamp. We need everybody. Some people have called Natalie Yamp names and all of that. No, that makes you a fan. It makes you a fan. And you know what fans do? The people they idolate, when they make the worst mistake, they be like, oh, you good. It's like the people that support Donald Trump. There are some group of people in the US that support Donald Trump that even when he's going to crash out, they be like, oh, go on, go on. These are the worst type of people you need around you. Let's be brutally honest. It's like having a pit exit next to you when you are dealing with a battle that is not going to be won on social media, a battle that is going to be won on the contact line. You need the most brutally honest operator around you. I'm talking about people that will tell you, man, you're getting out of line. But at the end of the day, who takes the glory? It will not be them. It will be you. Some people want us to be alive so bad that they are going to say some things that is going to hurt us. We are going to get angry. But we have to realize that everything they've ever done is for our own interests. Now, there are some talks. I've seen the exchange from both sides. The exchange is not even supposed to be public. Now, this is where I am going to go for. Now, I'm going to say this. Everything that Natalie Yam said, some things were not correct. Some things were clearly not correct. Some things were correct. She said some correct things indirectly, not directly. Now, what did she say indirect? I'm not going to go into the things she said. that is very, very correct about the number, the years that Vasily should spend in prison. There should be no negotiation. There were some people, presidential pardon, and some of all those instances she gave. These are documented facts. Now, one thing that she said indirectly that is correct is that France should hand over Iyad Gali, Amadou Kufa. She mentioned all those names. Now, there was a response that these guys are clearly not in the coffers of France, they're in Algeria. But ladies and gentlemen, we definitely know on this very day that Algeria takes direct command and orders. No matter the posture they are trying to put out there, France still wield an enormous level of influence in Algeria. When it's to come to decision making across the globe, if France wants Iyad Gali inside Algeria, they get him. If they want Amadou Kufa, they get him. Because these people are shuttling between two places, Mauritania and Algeria. Not even Libya, Mauritania, Algeria. So she said that France needs to hand over them to Mali. Now the truth is, they are not. Now, Abdou Niang was correct when he said, you definitely know that they are not in Paris. They are in Algeria. Abdou Niang said, if you wanted something good, you should have been able to discuss this with the president of Algeria, because you are part of the representative that have gotten the opportunity to approach Algiers. From a tactical standpoint, these are facts. Now, what do I think? All right. I kind of think that Natalie Yamb made a mistake again. And what was a mistake? This is not a conversation you are supposed to put out there in the public. Let me tell you something. When I start making babies, there's some conversation that I'm going to have with my partner. I can't, on no occasion should my kids hear about it. There are some brutal negotiation that is only going to take place between me and my wife. It's all love at the end of the day. Our kids must never know about it. I learned something as a kid, and it formed me to this day to grind through any situation. Let me tell you something. If I ever get into a situation that is beyond me, you know the best I'll do? I'll prepare for the worst possible outcome. Because my daddy used to tell me, nobody is coming to get you. Now, let me tell you another thing. I have never met my dad one-on-one before and tell him that this is what I need. No matter how, he might be irritable, he might get angry and all of that, but my dad has never told me, looked me in the eye and told me, there is no money. I've never heard that word from that man. And now that I'm a man, when I remember just that word alone, when I remember that episode alone, that my dad has never looked at me, even if looking back, I know that some of those moments were very bad for him. But he has never looked me in the eye and be like, you know what, there is no money. He has never done it before. He formed me into the type of man that I am today. Honor to the very end. I kind of think there are some situations where certain conversations is not meant for public consumption. You, Natalie Yamb, you already have the position. You have that hedge when it comes to your proximity to the government of the AES. What do I mean? I mean, Natalie Yamb, you are the special advisor to the CNT in Niger. Can't you? I want to believe that if Natalie Yamb calls General Assimi Goita, that call is going to be It's going to resonate differently. If Natalie Yam gets on the next flight and be like, okay, I'm going to Bamako, I need to have a discussion with President Goita. I think Natalie Yam already carries that influence to a point where if she says, I need to have a very serious conversation with the president, I think they are going to listen to her. So I think these are conversations that is meant for behind closed doors. We don't need to know. You see all the stories we heard recently? We don't need to know. We have our own levels of issues to deal with when it comes to the security of the Sahel. They have sentenced Vasily to jail time. Why not reach out on the phone? All right? Why not reach out on the phone? Why not reach out to certain people? I want to believe that if Natalie Yam have this conversation with Assimi Goita, the same message she's trying to pass across will be passed in a private one-on-one rapprochement. That we are watching, sir. That all eyes are on you, sir. And Assimi will know that that's true. And who even said Assimi makes decision in Mali without taking the perspective of other decision makers in Mali into perspective before making decision? No. He's not a dictator. He weighs different options. He takes other people's opinion into perspective, carefully sieving the chaff from the norm before taking those decisions. So let's get on point. This is a point where real allies, you see, when you've not gotten to this point with anyone you call your ally, they are not your ally. For me, this is a proof that Natalie Yamb is a real one. But at the same time, this is a point where Natalie Yamb needs to realize there are certain things that if we do, it does not only affect how the governments of Mali and the people of Mali see her, it affects how some people will start looking at her. Because some people are looking at her now. I'm seeing a lot of posts on Facebook and on different platforms. They are beginning to look at her like, are you working for the imperialists? They started bringing back some of the things she has said in the past. Now, she made one comment, which is very, very erroneous. Why was it erroneous? Because of the context. So it was misinforming. Natalie Yam said that Burkina Faso granted presidential pardon to certain people, but she did not state the year and who was in government at that time. For context, it is very, very important that if you find it so important to quote that particular premise to back up the point you're trying to drive, you should state the time for context so that you don't mislead people, so that you don't make people start looking at people, at certain people, like, So what am I trying to say? Natalie Yamb was so emotional that she passed the message across. I kind of would say that maybe she didn't refine it properly because she was not trying to make a sort of publicity or something. She was trying to drive a point. And when you're trying to drive out your point, sometimes you say too many things that if people call you later and be like, you said this, you'll be like, did I say that? So I think that was the problem. I think this is what the enemy wants. I think the enemy wants us to see Natalie Yamb as a bad person, and for some people among us to start seeing the Malian government as the bad people. All right. So this is why I say that at this point, we must recognize that no matter what happens, Natalie Yamb is still one of our own at the end of the day. And she has played a very crucial role in this movement up until this point, this revolution up until this point. It is called the People's Revolution for a reason. It means that everybody has a voice, all right? And everybody's opinion matters. Whatever Natalie Yamb is trying to say was received loud and clear. I believe Natalie Yamb has learned her lessons. She has seen a mistake. But at this point, what I would say, whatever you have inside you against Natalie Yamb, this is the point of ceasefire. All right? At this point, this is the point where we have to say ceasefire. In fact, this is not a ceasefire, this is a peace treaty at this point because they say it's teaching time saves now. If you don't address the little issues, it can escalate. This is what the enemy wants. It said, let's put some sort of discord within them. Let's disorganize them. So if they get to disorganize us, what does that make us? It makes them smarter. So we must not forget the fact that Natalie Yamb has equally participated in this struggle. She's an integral part of this, just the way you are. So, what I'm saying is, as families, there was an exchange, right? We got it. But our message to Natalie Yamb is the message next time can be passed in a better way. That is why you occupy the position you occupy. All right? But it's all love. This is the message I want to send out to the people on that conversation. And whatever the case may be, it should be dead from now on. Ian Vasily is in prison, but we got our cautionary tale that we are watching out for him. All right? If that's the message that Natalie Yamb is trying to pass across, that we need to see the next time we are supposed to see Vasily is in 2046. And if they can shorten the term. In fact, we can have the negotiation tomorrow if they can give us the guys that we just recently slapped the bounty on. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want to bid you all farewell because I felt the need for us to address this issue because it was of pressing concern. Yeah, I know she needs to lower her emotion, but emotion is the fuel that powers the message to reach those points that ordinary messages don't reach. When I speak, do you know that none of what I do here has ever been scripted? I say it right from me, from within me, how I feel, even in this moment. And I kind of realized that A lot of things can happen at the same time. A lot of things. It is because we have witnessed. And I feel Natalie Yam's pain. Do you know why? Most of the people I follow from the enemy side to check their update on what the field they are doing, which most of the time we declare, we're able to break down their propaganda. I discovered the names I found on that platform. I used to see Natalie Yam too. And I see, prominent Malian figures. Because you got to be able to know what the enemy is thinking, what their next move will be. So I want to believe that Natalie Yamba's equally seen some of this footage that I said I've seen, the final moment of some of the troops. And that was why I was angry the day I heard that some Salafi Sunni in Burkina Faso were trying to tumble the whole place. If you think you have that's moral energy, you think that momentum is inside you, I think you should be sent to the battlefield, right exactly where the contact line is. For that your fanatical belief, face the enemies one-on-one. And let's see how the enemy treats you, since you think the enemies are good people. So I understand Natalie Yam's perspective. I understand the Malian people's perspective. There is always a thin line. That thin line is called respect. I think at the end of everything, we all should have respect for ourselves. This is what makes friendship last longer. But we should not love fear. Respect does not mean you fear people, all right? When you think you respect someone to the point that you cannot speak out, it's no longer respect, it's fear. And that's very dangerous, not for you, but for them. But the problem is, Natalie Yam passed the message through the wrong channel. And with that said, we are all on the same page. So it's at this point I want to close the case. I think the message is clear to everyone now. Natalie Yam is now our enemy, and she will never be. All right. So, families, I want to thank you all for your support. So far, so good. I want to appreciate you all. You all have been phenomenal in this journey. We have been moving gradually, and we have been possessing many scalps. Every victory we celebrate together, that is what makes this journey more important and more beautiful. The adventure, I've never been in an adventure this beautiful. This is the best of the very, very best. Sometimes emotion goes up and sometimes emotion coming back down. So when emotion goes up and come back down, we need to find equilibrium. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all. I want to thank Bad Design, Ignatius Moore. I want to thank Mr. Nelson. I want to thank Omar Keita. You're always a brother. Drafidi. I want to thank Cryptography Talk, Pan Africanists, like a whole lot of your Rosie Angel, Jack V57, Khadija, man, you all are the best. All right. Yeah, Carib Shaw Bear, like, man, you all are the best. And to all those that are now available in this live stream, I know you all. Terry, yeah, I see you. Flavor Blade and all the names I can't mention right now because it will take our time. So because I want everyone to go to bed, right? So I really want to say thank you for coming. I believe that we've been able to reach a conclusion on this issue. So much respect and much love.